Selling a property with tenants, yay or nay?
Nay.
Unanimously.
Yeah, it's a big no.
I will say I have had, like, I'll talk about it a little bit too from a buyer's agent. It's one or the other. Like, I show up to the property and the tenant's there, and okay, more times than not, the tenant kind of hinders that showing, and it's not as good of an experience as it would be if there was no tenant in the property. Yep. I've had it a couple times, again, not as often. If there's a tenant that like maintains the property and it shows well, and you have someone living in the home as opposed to just a vacant unit, I think it shows better. But then the buyers, it's also eliminating your buyer pool, because if they can't take possession for 3 months or however long, you might lose a couple people that might have seen it otherwise. However, I think sometimes it would show better.
You need to have a good
You have to have a good tenant though, and it's very case by case.
Yeah.
Very case by
Very
case.
case by absolutely.
How about showing ones that says tenant wants to stay?
Yeah.
I guess if you're looking for a revenue property, it'd be okay, but
Yeah.
Again,
at the same
case
time,
by
you probably
case.
want to pick your own tenant too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's very favorable to have
No,
tenants
I
in there,
agree.
but
Well, and it makes it harder to schedule. Like if somebody, if a client is like, can we
24
see
hours?
these tomorrow? It's like, tomorrow too? No.
No.
We gotta wait now until the day after, right? But in general, I find the tenant's motivation to move is very different from a seller wanting to sell, right? Like to move
Well, and they
the
just,
property.
the care isn't always as there.
I've
Or
shown
as
up to
much
places
there,
and like the tenant meets us out in the front yard and they full blown tell the client like, I'm not moving, like I don't need to move for another, like they don't want to leave
for
clearly.
sure.
So like,
Or they tell the buyer, oh, the roof leaks,
Yeah, they
the stairs leaks, the tub leaks,
We've had mice a few times.
but they're doing that because they don't want to leave.
No,
but
exactly.
at the same time, like I do sort of, sometimes I feel for those
Yes,
tenants, which
of
isn't a good
course.
thing as a buyer's representative, right? Like I'm trying to help my clients buy this house, but I feel for those tenants because that's their home.
Yeah,
That's
for
where
sure.
they live, and they
sure.
could have lived there for 10 years, right? So it's
Especially if they want to stay and you know your client's not looking to purchase and have them stay.
Yeah.
You don't want to feel like you're kicking them out, right?
yes, yeah.
But
I will say I've had more experiences where it's bad than it's good, but there's the odd one where it's good.
The funny
odd
thing
one,
too, though, is that like a lot of don't you find too that like when like it seems to be rare, or at least in what I've dealt with, I feel like it seems to be rare that people are selling a tenanted property just for fun. Like they're usually selling them because they have to sell them, or they they have a change in life, or they need to do something.
Yeah.
They weren't like planning on selling this property with tenants in it. So it's like yeah, you kind of feel bad for the tenant, but you also feel bad for the seller, because it's like if you were a tenant who was maybe, and again, this is not very case specific, but if you're a tenant who's not paying the bills, who's like your owner is, and they can't get you out, like there's a lot of different situations
For sure.
with tenants, right, that aren't always ideal. So
yeah.
For sure, and there's a lot less certainty too. Like, will they move out
Will they
when
move
they
out?
say they're going to?
And will they not cause a ton of damage to the property? That's a thing too, right?
Yeah.
They
Oh,
don't
yeah,
want to
same.
leave, and well, screw you.
Yeah. I've also had sellers selling in maybe not the best areas of the city where they didn't want the tenants out either, though, because if it's a property sitting vacant, they're worried
More at
about
risk.
so
Yeah.
that's a catch-22, because now you're keeping the tenants in it. They don't necessarily want to move, but that's the best option to protect the property. And
Yeah.
those are a tough
That's
one.
a tough one, yeah.
Yep.
That is a tough one.
Yeah.
yeah, always tricky. It's always fun too when you open a door in a house and there's someone like sleeping in bed, or now I'd like to show you the never mind. The door closes and
Right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Not our listings anytime of late, I don't think, but our photographer, videographer were saying our favorite is when we just pull the covers back over the person in bed and shoot the room again. They say it happens a lot in
happens a lot.
rentals, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, if you can, if you're a seller, if you can, try to get those tenants out of there and then list the property.
Agreed. Yeah.
And if you're worried about, it being vacant, there's staging is always an option too. But
Yep.
Yes.
For
that's
sure.
sort of the way to go.
I would agree. Yeah. Yeah. Make it easy, make it accessible,
Yeah.
make it pretty.
Especially in a market like
Make
this
it
where like most things are going to sell pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like the more barriers you put in,
Yes.
and your biggest barrier is going to be a tenant. Like that is probably
Yeah.
of all the issues that you're going to come across when selling, tenant's probably your biggest barrier.
Yeah.
Or at
It's a
least
big
one
one.
of the top.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
would be up
for
there,
sure.
For sure. Sorry, tenants. But also, I will say we've had like where it's tenanted, but maybe it's like a family member that's agreeable.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
like, they're cleaning it. They want it to be nice for their
Yes.
family
Or like
member.
I've had it where I've shown a property and like the tenant knows, like it was almost the other way around. Like the tenant has been such a good tenant and they gave their notice, so now the
Yeah.
seller
For
is
sure.
selling the
And
property.
they want the best for the
Yeah.
seller,
Yeah.
right?
So like they're like, oh, welcome, and it's like beautiful, but 9 times out of 10 that's not the case.
No, I would
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, it's the exception, not
Yeah.
the norm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.